Welcome everyone to this webinar. We shall give it another few minutes to allow other people to join, and then we shall start.
Can you see my presentation?
Now we have, I think, started the session. Henry, we shall check that later. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to everyone, wherever you're joining in from. We would like to request you to put in the chat where you're joining in from, such that we have an overview of who is here with us today. A very welcome to all of you to this afternoon webinar, which is going to focus on general environmental management issues in the Nile Basin Initiative. My name is Mary Namkose, and I am one of the caretakers for this webinar. And we would like to start our webinar by introducing to you our moderator of the day, and she's Miss Julie Mulonga. She's the one who will take us through this session. And Miss Julie Mulonga has a 25-year career in the water and environmental sector, currently serving as the Director for Wetlands International in Eastern Africa. Her responsibilities span several countries, including Kenya, Tanzania, Ethiopia, Sudan, and Uganda. She also collaborates with international, regional, and national stakeholders, including, of course, the Nile Basin Initiative. And she leads a dedicated team that is conserving and restoring wetlands in the 3 crucial landscapes in East Africa. And her work focuses on benefiting communities which are dependent on these ecosystems for livelihoods, flood and drought mitigation, and carbon sequestration. She holds a master's degree in environmental planning and management and a postgraduate diploma in water resources management. And she's currently a PhD candidate in climate change and adaptation, focusing on mangrove-dependent communities, resilience to climate change. Welcome, Madam Julie Mulonga, our moderator of the session, and over to you.
So thank you very much for that introduction, Mary, and really good to be able to moderate this session. So as Mary has said, introduce yourselves in the chat. I can see that we already have 28 participants. So let's make this session as interactive as possible. It will run for the next 1.5 hours, I believe. We'll have a keynote speaker coming in. And after the keynote speaker, we'll then have a total of 4 presentations for now. So let's sit back and enjoy our session. So to start off this session, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker. We know very well that we need to set the scene. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Jean Namugize, who has over 19 years of technical and research experience in the field of integrated water resource management. He has done work focusing around catchment management plans, rainwater harvesting systems, hydrological and water quality modeling, water quality assessment, water and wastewater treatment processes, and also the plants. He has also done some work on environmental and social impact assessment studies, GIS, and renewable energy. He's currently the Regional Water Quality Expert at the Nile Basin Initiative Secretariat. He's based in Entebbe, Uganda. So Dr. Jean completed his PhD studies in hydrology at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. He specialized in land use, land cover change evaluation, and catchment hydrological modeling, and earned both a Master of Science and Bachelor of Science from the University of Rwanda, where he also guest lectured on a regular basis, and he earned a certificate and a certificate of fellowship in environmental studies from the United Nations University Geothermal Training Program in Iceland. So Dr. Jean Namugize, welcome. We're looking forward to hearing from you. So please go ahead. Okay, we cannot hear you.
Okay. Thank you, moderator, dear presenters, and the participant of the General Environment Management webinar. Good afternoon. The Nile Basin Development Forum is a high-level regional event convened every 3 years by the Nile Basin Initiative in collaboration with its member state and in partnership with development partners. The event is a science policy practice dialogue that provides an opportunity for constructive reflection on contemporary information, knowledge, and best practices, as well as building partnership among professionals in transboundary water resource management and development. 6 editions of NBDF have been held between 2006 and 2021 in Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, and Sudan, and now in Uganda. I highly appreciate the Republic of Uganda for accepting to host the 7th edition of NBDF, and to all presenters and participants at this webinar. This webinar is about general environment management in the Nile Basin. Our environment is under different pressure, especially from anthropogenic causes. Some of the key environmental challenges in the basin include, but not limited to, soil erosion and sedimentation, pollution from agriculture, industry, and the urban areas, degradation of ecosystem, wetland, forest, and peatland, biodiversity loss, climate change, and its related impact. Addressing these environmental management challenges in the basin require a collaborative and a coordinated effort among riparian countries, development partners, non-state actors, research institutions, the public sector, and stakeholders who depend on environmental resources for the basin, and various services from this particular basin, to promote sustainable environmental management, ecosystem conservation, and the climate resilience in the region. So in this webinar, one in general, on general environmental management, we expected to find insights to the following lead question, and the other that may cause from the 6 presentation planned. Without taking much of your time, I wish all of you a fruitful presentation and deliberation. Thank you very much.
So,
over to you, moderator.
Thank you very much, Dr. Namugize, and thank you for setting the scenes from us. Indeed, you have indicated that there are challenges in the basin ranging from degradation And of course, climate change coming in to worsen some of these challenges. And what you've clearly stated is that we need collaborative efforts from all. So during this webinar, we will try and look at some of the efforts that we need to put in place to be able to address some of these challenges. So without further much ado, I'd like to present the first speaker for today. Our first speaker is Miss Josiane Abonio. Ms. Josiane Abonio currently is based in Switzerland. She's a highly experienced Rwanda professional. She specializes in climate change, environmental management, chemicals and waste management projects. She is a junior professional technical support for Africa at the Convention of Wetlands on Wetland Secretariat. And she really plays a vital role in advancing wetland conservation efforts across the continent. She previously worked for the World Meteorological Organization. She holds degrees in aquatic environmental science and conservation and water policy, and has completed additional professional development in project management and policy. So she's going to be focusing her talk today on can multilateral environmental agreements enhance the management of wetlands in the Nile Basin. So Ms. Josiane Abonio, welcome. We look forward to hearing from you. So you have 10 minutes, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Moronga. Please let me know if you can see my screen.
Can see your screen, please go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to present to you this research paper that analyzes whether multilateral environmental agreement can enhance the sustainable management of wetlands within the Nile Basin. The Nile Basin Initiative, through its wetland strategy, stated that currently the management of wetlands continue to be a challenge to the riparian countries, and urged the ability of the Nile Basin member states to cooperate in order to tackle the existing threats to wetlands. It is in this regard that we conducted this research with the main objective of tapping into existing wetlands management gaps in the Nile Basin and explore how enhancing the synergies between MAs that are currently addressing wetland management can potentially lead to wetland use and wise use and conservation. So in this presentation, I will present to you our methodology, findings, case study, objective, and recommendation to policymakers. Currently, the Nile Basin spans 11 countries, and 10% of Africa landmass influences the lives of over 250 million people. In the Nile Basin, wetlands cover 4% of the total area, with 68 wetlands of transboundary importance, of which 40 wetlands are designated as wetlands of international importance. Wetlands plays a critical role in providing food, water, and livelihood, and providing resilience to drought and floods while supporting biodiversity. So wetlands have numerous values, and there are a lot of existing studies that shows on how to calculate these values. And like I mentioned before, in addition to production of food and control and flood control, we have non-use values. Wetlands have non-use values like biodiversity and cultural heritage. So with multiple values and benefits provided by wetland, it is imperative to understand why an awareness to their management is crucial. And because an array of factors are threatening wetlands of the Nile Basin and driving deforestation, biodiversity loss, and climate change, and loss of substantial amount of revenue to humanity. So past efforts to address issues affecting the Nile Basin wetlands have had mixed results due to failure to institutional arrangement, poverty, and other factors. And there is still a management gap and issues to address wetlands management across the Nile Basin, such as lack of cross-border and transboundary perspective in the management, limited to human and financial capacities. So our objective it was to compare the legislative provision of the 3 MAs that are currently addressing wetland issues in the river basin, examine what is driving the uptake and enforcement of these MAs by countries, and explore effective practice of where MA bolster institutional governance. We use the literature review to showcase how effective institutional governance arrangements drive action on the ground and identified opportunities for strengthening institutional framework. So let's first talk on what are the MAs. These are agreements between 3 or more countries to address national, regional, and global environmental problems. Currently, there are over 500 MAs addressing transboundary environmental problems, of which 60 MAs are addressing biodiversity-related issues, including wetlands. However, for the focus of this study, we focused on Convention on Biological Diversity, Convention on Wetlands, and the Water Convention. In general, when a country ratifies an MA and is entered into force, the country's focus shifts to implementation through different mechanisms such as reporting, verification, and compliance. So MAs have different benefits across at national level and at global level, where we have on national level enhancing cooperation across sectors, efficient drawing on existing national expertise, and also on a global level where it increased the consistency in international commitment. So overview, I will take you through these 3 MAs. We analyzed for example, the Convention on Wetlands. At the moment, only 9 out of 11 countries in the Nile Basin and riparian country have ratified it. And its mission is to conserve the wise use of all wetlands with 3 pillar objectives on wise use of all wetlands, designate suitable wetlands for the list of wetlands of international importance, and cooperate internationally. While Convention on Biological Diversity or Nile Basin and riparian country have ratified it, and its mission is to promote the conservation of biodiversity with the objective of sustainable use of the components of biological diversity and fair and equitable sharing of the benefits. While for Water Convention, no Nile Basin country has yet ratified this convention. Its mission is protect and ensure quantity and quality and sustainable use of transboundary water resources, and with 3 objectives: to prevent, control, reduce transboundary impact, ensure reasonable and equitable use of transboundary water, and cooperation through agreement. So this research shows that the 3 conventions first acknowledge the importance of wetlands management and also recognize the needs for conservation and sustainable use. For the Convention of Biodiversity and the Water Convention have both recognized that the Convention on Wetlands is an important international treaty for the conservation and the wise use of wetlands, and has referred to it as a go-to for the information and technical guidance when it comes to wetlands management. So here I'm presenting the benefit of this for joining the 3 conventions. And if you look at this this slide, you will see that there are overlap across the benefit. For all the convention, they provide technical tools and the guidance for their contracting party to enhance environmental sustainable use of resource. They offer international setting, voice agenda issues, and they promote and facilitate access to expertise, funding, and the training opportunity, while promoting collaborative approach across international setting. So what is the current status of MAs in the Nile Basin? So at the moment, the Nile Basin Initiative has created the Nile Basin Monitoring Guidelines to match the state of the basin report and meet reporting needs of international environment, has entered into close collaboration with LAMSEA, as well as Global Peatlands Initiative, and has established a wetland regional expert working group. All 9 basin riparian countries have submitted their NBSAP, and 5 out of 9 countries have submitted their 2021 Convention on Wetland National Reports. During the 14th meeting of the Working Group on Integrated Water Resources Management, Tanzania and Sudan expressed their interest in joining the Water Convention. However, they have also identified that their partnership and cooperation with relevant regional and international institutions is still limited. So why are we talking about synergies? Synergies within MAs can happen at different levels, at international level, at national level, and at the secretariat level. And it has been identified that synergies play a key role in enhancing efficient and effective national implementation, increases coherence, brings full engagement of all stakeholders, facilitate efficient use of human and resource, and align relevant national policy and improve national report preparation. Now, for this research, we wanted to look at the lesson learned from other MAEs synergies across other thematic area. For example, the Basel Rotterdam Stockholm, which is focused in chemicals, where the three conventions have developed the mechanism while maintaining the legal autonomy. And this has strengthened its implementation. While understanding this, we realize that for an MA synergy to be successful must be driven by countries, must follow a step-by-step approach, allow transparency, and must be made by parties across MAs. And we look also at the benefit that were provided by such synergies. There is also another synergy we looked at. This is a joint work plan that was developed between the conventional biological diversity and the conventional wetlands, where the work plan urged the parties for national focal points of the two conventions to cooperate. And this can be translated at national and basin level in regards to wetland management through developing national and basin regional work plan strategies for implementing MAs, establishing informal and formal committees for coordination among national focal points of the three conventions, establishing national and basin MAs committee as mechanism for national focal points, and maximizing available tools that has been provided by different MAs. So now another example of where for this purpose and for wetlands management, it can be applied is an example of NBSAP. And this is the best time, this is the great moment because countries are submitting their NBSAP. And some of the NBSAP decision urges contracting party to include in the national biodiversity strategy and action plans relevant action to implement commitments and recommendation under each of biodiversity related MAE agreement to which they are a part and facilitate the engagement and coordination among national focal points. So to close this, this is still an ongoing research that will require to further break down and understand how each riparian country implement MAs and what synergies in different areas that can be drawn in terms of financing area reporting to avoid the duplication. However, there are key recommendations at the moment we can recommend to policymakers, such as recognizing the role of MAs synergy towards managing wetlands, and develop national strategy for implementation across MAs, coordinate and collaborate with different MAs when drafting and working on strategies that address wetland management and conservation, establish informal and formal committee to coordinate national focal points, different ministries and agencies, leverage available tools and the guidance provided by the three mentioned MAs when implementing strategy, and explore capacity building activity to better understand how synergies work and how they can be embedded in the implementation strategy. Thank you.
All right, so thank you very much, and thank you for keeping time. Indeed, that has been, a very inspiring presentation. You've talked about mayors, their status, their benefits, their status in the basin. You've also given us a very good case study. And of course, you've concluded very well by providing some proposals for taking this forward for the policymakers in terms of looking at it, for example, developing national strategies, leveraging tools, and capacity building. So thank you very much. In case there are any questions, I would urge that we put them in the chat, or you hold them for the next, until we finish all the different presenters. So I'd like to present our next presenter. Our next presenter is Ms. Sadiki Maleho-Mpo. She works with Digital Earth Africa and is based in Pretoria, South Africa. So she is an Earth observation data scientist And in her role, she leverages satellite imagery and geospatial data to create continental services that support sustainable food management, agricultural practices, food security, and urbanization in Africa. So with her, she has a strong background in geoinformatics and a master's degree from University of Pretoria. She's currently pursuing a PhD, which is really focused on mapping wetland ecosystem biodiversity across the African continent. So we welcome you, Ms. Mpo, and we look forward to hearing from you on an integrated approach to transboundary water governance in the Nile Basin. So welcome. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, moderator. As I've been introduced, my name is Mpho Sadiki, and I'm a Earth Observation Data Scientist for Digital Earth Africa, and I'm based out of South Africa. So today, I'm here to hopefully help in helping understand how the Digital Earth Africa platform can support water resource and wetland management in the Nile Basin. So I hope by the end of this presentation, you have a good overview of how our very nice and free platform can assist in the management of water resources in the basin. Before I do that, please just allow me just 2 slides to share the vision of Digital Earth Africa and as well as an overview of what we actually do. So we are a platform that tries to provide routine, reliable, and an operational service that uses Earth observation to deliver decision-ready products to enable policymakers, scientists, and a whole host of stakeholders to address social, environmental, and economic changes on the continent, and to also develop an ecosystem for innovation across different sectors. And these are the 5 thematic areas that we focus on. Obviously, today, my focus will be on water resources, but we also look at agriculture and food security, land degradation, coastal erosion, as well as urbanization. Through the Digital Earth Africa platform, we have a lot of data, and we store it all in a data cube, and it's actually the largest data cube, open data cube implementation in the world. We have over 3.5 petabytes of data that we host on Amazon Web Services. And this is all freely available to anyone to use, whether for commercial or for research use or for personal use. It's all freely available, as well as all the products that we create from this data. And we provide it in a way that is already optimized for web processing as well. And we provide complete visibility in terms of what we do with the data, how we get into the platform, how we get into the data cube, what we do with it, and all the products that come out of those specific data sets. And we, of course, support a range of SDGs as well. So today, my primary focus is to demonstrate how the Digital Earth Africa tools and services that we have can be helpful in supporting transboundary water governance in the Nile Basin. And to do that, we'll be looking at 3 components that I like to think of as interconnected. So we'll look at continental water observation. Although it says continental, one must think of it as the Nile Basin is included on the continent. So every part of the basin is accounted for within that continental service. We also have a regional wetland inventory that we're developing. So that would allow for either countries or regions or areas like the Nile River Basin to create an inventory of wetlands and also monitor them over time. I'll also go through a site-specific wetland change analysis tool that we call the Wetland Insight tool that will allow you to look into how a wetland is changing with time. So first, I will talk about the water observation from space product or service. So we call it WAFS. So this is a remarkable service that we have that leverages on satellite imagery to provide historical and current surface water observations spanning the entire continent of Africa from 1984 to present day. By present day, I mean 2022, because we do create it on an annual basis. So this tool or the service offers you a comprehensive view of the surface water dynamics. It showcases how they change over time, and it enables you to understand the location as well as the movement of both inland and coastal water across the vast African landscape. And it has three main features that it provides. The first one is the feature layer. This just tells you whether a pixel or a scene, a satellite scene has water or none, it's not water. And we also have the annual summary, which gives you a ratio of wet to clear observations for each calendar year, and an all-time summary that gives you a ratio of wet to clear observation over all of time from 1984 to 2022. So the key advantages of the water observation from space service is that it provides you with a continental view, first of all. So the entirety of the Nile Basin is included within this particular water observation from space product. So it also takes away that the time that one would take to go process the Landsat imagery and then create some sort of analysis that will look at how water is changing over time, but rather just go into the Digital Earth Africa platform. You can see how a water body of interest is changing without having to go through too much trouble. And of course, it gives you the temporal resolution because it offers you historical surface water observations, so you can analyze how water is changing with time. And of course, it's satellite based, so it's non-invasive and it's cost effective, and it means it's perfect for transboundary water management as well. And in the example that I show here, you can see that this is Lake Naivasha in Kenya. You can just see how it's changing from 1984 to 2022. So this sort of animation, this sort of insight is possible for any water body or water resource in the Nile River Basin, where you can tell how it's reacting to different inputs or different things that are happening within the environment with time. The next thing that I'll focus on is the regional wetland. Still in the works, so it's not done yet, but we are working on a set of notebooks. So these are Python Jupyter notebooks that one would
Are you able to hear me?
Yes,
We
we
can hear
can
you.
hear you. I think we've lost Sadiq.
Yeah.
We have lost. I thought I was the one who was lost, but let's give her a few minutes. We know
my
sometimes,
apologies.
sometimes these things happen. So you're back on?
Let me just share again. Sorry about that.
That is fine, huh?
I think my internet just went down for a little bit.
That's
So I'll just continue on from the wetland inventory development that we're doing. So it's a set, like I said, a set of end-to-end analytical workflow notebooks that will allow you to go from the training stage to the actual development of a wetland type map for your area of interest. And at the moment, we are testing it in South Africa and Rwanda, but we are looking at getting other places as well to test this workflow before we can release it for public use. So if anyone here is interested in joining us in this endeavor to create this workflow, please do reach out and we can work together to make sure we create something of substance and that can actually be usable and useful on the continent. The last thing that I'll talk about is just the Wetland Insight tool. So the Wetland Insight tool is a tool that gives you an analysis of how a wetland or a water body is changing seasonally and interannually. So with this tool, it tells you how much of your area of interest is water, how much is green vegetation, how much is dry vegetation, how much is bare soil, and how this varies with time within the boundary that you've demarcated. So it provides you with the ability to compare how it's a wetland or a water body is behaving with time and how it has behaved in the past as well. So this allows you to identify how the changes in the availability of water have affected the wetland that you're looking at. And it leverages three components or three products or services that we host on the Digital Earth Africa platform. So it looks at the fractional cover, the water observation from space that I just highlighted, as well as Landsat surface reflectance data. So as you can see on the right there, it tells you the logic of how the tool actually works. So it first checks if a pixel is cloudy or not. And if it is not, it is then checked if it can be classified as open water using the water observation from space product. And if that is not the case, it then uses the Landsat surface reflectance to look at whether computing rather the tasseled cap wetness to look at whether the pixel can be classified as wet, and the remaining is either classified as green vegetation, dry vegetation, or bare soil according to the fractional cover service. So something that you can expect is something like this, where we're looking at this lake of Lake Krionze in Mali, where you can see it changing from 2012 to, I believe, 2020, and it tells you how the distribution of rather the fractional cover, the wetness and the water with time for that particular water body. So the main usefulness that we think the Wetland Insight tool offers is that you can track not only size, but also ecosystem health. You can also assess the hydrological changes, and you can compare different wetlands to identify stability and prioritize conservation efforts. So this product is designed, of course, to understand how wetland is changing over time. In instances where the wetland, you know that the wetland is changing, it can allow you to look at how whether these changes are gradual, whether they're rapid, whether they're once-off, or whether they are cyclical in nature. For example, you can for wetlands you can rather look at whether the following drivers can be assessed. You can look at how river flow volumes, change in flood frequency, long-term shifts in rainfall, invasive weeds, and so on. So these three things that I just highlighted, the water observation from space, the wetland inventory development that we're doing, as well as the Wetland Insight tool, I believe they offer a sort of a continuum that one can use to look at transboundary water governance in the Nile River Basin. You can go from more of a large scale when you look at the continental service that is offered by the WAFs, and then you can go more regional where you can create your own inventory, but you can also go site specific where you can look at how a particular area of interest is, or a water body is changing with time, and how those changes are distributed in terms of wetness, fractional cover, and water. So we believe that these water resource management and support sustainable development, and of course foster cross-border collaboration within the Nile Basin countries. So that is all for me that I will say in these 10 minutes, but please do go to our website, digitalearthafrica.org, where you'll find all the information that you might require if you have any questions, as well as information to reach out to us to collaborate or ask any questions. So thank you very much for allowing me this time to tell you a little bit about what Digital Earth Africa can offer. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. Though we lost you for half a minute, I think that was a very good presentation. I like the way you have tools that span across that continuum. And indeed, as we look at ways in which we are going to report when it comes to the global biodiversity framework, targets 2 and 3, I think these then become very essential tools in terms of our wetlands and our inland waters, our Ramsar reporting. So happy to see that these tools are there and they're available. If you do have questions for the rest of our participants, kindly put them in the question and answer, or we can wait until the last participant has, or the last presenter has presented, then we can ask those questions. So we now go on to our third presenter. Our third presenter is Mr. Asefa Gudina Muleta. He is from Ethiopia. He got his first degree in agriculture from Haramaya University in Ethiopia. He also has a Master of Science from Wageningen in the Wageningen University in the Netherlands. He has a lot of experience. He's worked in different sectors, be it the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Energy, Ministry of Environment, as a research center director, and also as a water resource project coordinator and a directorate director, respectively in those 3 sectors. So currently he's working as a regional social and environmental officer at ENTRO. So today we are going to hear from him about the ecological and livelihood impacts of community-based watershed management. And he'll look at the case of Tana and Beles integrated water resource management in the Eastern Nile. So welcome, Mr. Asefa.
Okay, thank you, moderator. Let me share my slide. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Asefa from Intro. So my presentation is entitled as Ecological and Livelihood or Socioeconomic Impact of Integrated Watershed Management, which is the case of Tana, which is one of the basin in the Eastern Nile basin. So my presentation has a sort of introduction, a bit I'm going to touch the objective of my presentation, some of the components of the projects, location, achievements, lesson learned, and finally I'm going to touch one slide on recommendation from the output of implementation of this project. So as to the introduction, Eastern Nile Integrated Development Project has identified several integrated related to improved water resources management and the use. One of the components is Integrated Watershed Project, which was implemented under the umbrella of the larger development plan known as Integrated Water Resource Development Project in the Eastern Nile. So the objective of this project is to improve development and the management of land and water resources of the Tana and the Beles Basin. And at the same time, it was meant to contribute to the socio-economic development through improved rural livelihood in the Tana sub-basin. So this integrated watershed project component was implemented in Jema, Gumera, and the Rib watershed within the Tana Lake sub-basin, and it was implemented for the last 6 years, and it was implemented on 80,600 hectares of watershed area. As I've tried to mention, it addressed biophysical and socioeconomic aspect within the selected watersheds. So these are the components which were included during the implementation of this project. The livelihood component, which encompasses entry points, crop production, and livestock production. The second theme really focused on natural resource management, including soil and water conservation, water supply and sanitation, irrigation, forestry, and agroforestry. Especially the soil and water conservation focuses on gully prevention, rehabilitation, forestry and agroforestry interventions, and small-scale intervention and infrastructural development. And the third component of this project is mainly on capacity building and project management issues. So this is a location map of the project, and it was implemented, as I've said, in the Eastern Nile, in Tanabeles. So these sites are the sites which were identified to implement this project. Identification of these sites were really involved community at grassroots level and different expertise and the decision maker from federal up the grassroots level. So overall, about 80,600 hectares of land was covered by this intervention. When it comes to the achievement, because of the time, this is a very vast project. It was implemented for the last 6 years, but I'm going to summarize it with the achievement that has been gained through implementation of this project. For example, these are the physical activities of the project in terms of different physical conservation measures. And at the same time, there are some intervention in terms of implementation of biological conservation measures through plantation of trees, shrubs, and grass of different species. And when we see the before and after scenarios of this project, there is really the difference that has been created due to intervention in the biological and physical conservation of the watershed management. In terms of the best practices obtained from this project, when we see the percentage distribution of household practicing conservation, the structure and the soil fertility management, when we see the soil or stone band practice, at the baseline stage, it was the baseline survey for this project was conducted in 2009, and again there was a survey in 2013, and finally at the end of the project there was a final survey in terms of measuring the progress of the implementation of this project. For example, in terms of check dam or stone dam, as a baseline stage, it was about 73.5%. But at the end of the project, the distribution of the household participated or practiced this conservation measure reached about 92.8%. All the intervention from the baseline to the final implementation is really progressing in terms of percentage change. For example, if we take the farm boundary plantation, it was 0 when the baseline survey was taken. Now it reached about 46%. So there is a progress in terms of this intervention due to the implementation of this project. This is a summary of land use, land cover change since the implementation of this project. In 2010, the bare land cover of the area intervention, the area identified was about 80,439, but at the end of the project, it reached about 1,860 because this bare land was under implementation of this project, and due to that intervention, really the area which is bare land was converted to productive land. Forest land is a bit changed from 10,000 to 11,000. Grassland changed from 70,000 to 5,000. This is due to the fact that the free grazing, which was previously practiced in the study area or in the project intervention area, was reduced due to limiting that free grazing system through limiting these animals in a simple specified plot through cut and carry system. So the area covered by grassland reduced to 5,000 from 17,000. Settlement increased from 444,000 to 2,000 because this is due to the fact that the community has got income due to this project intervention, and small resettlement or some of the people who are really in the rural areas joined cities around and the creation of village as a result of this project intervention. Farmland increased from 38,000 to 63,000. This is also due to the change from bare land or grassland to the productive farmland intervention of this project. So this is the result of the intervention of the project. In terms of the productivity of crop, when we see different variety of crop, for example, teff is the one which is grown in Ethiopia. It is a crop originated in Ethiopia from which injera is mainly produced. In terms of change in hectare in quintal, there is about 21.5 increment from the baseline survey in 2009 to that of 2016. When we see different crop varieties, there is really change in terms of productivity as a result of intervention of this project through demonstration conducted on different crop varieties and agronomic practices, and by providing continuous extension service on the watershed community. So really it's a big progress in terms of productivity of different variety of crop in this intervention area. When we come to the issue of the livestock management, animal production in terms of health facilities and services improved. Livestock in terms of breeds, the best performing breeds improved because of introduction of different breed to the area. Forage development increased in terms of the quality of forage supply to the production of these different stock production in the area. There was also capacity building as a result of intervention of this project, enhanced livestock management system through improved package of inputs in the area of this livestock production. When we come to the off-farm and on-farm income generating activities, there is also a variation from the baseline survey in terms of income, farm activities, for example, income from crop sale, income from sale of trees, income from livestock product, income from live animal sale. All these really contributed to the income of the community residing within that watershed areas. So, for example, income from crop sale increased from 38,000 to time to time. It is increasing to 17.9%. So these are some of the information that the lesson learned from this implementation of this project, integrating live entry point farm income generating activities within natural resource management is tested and demonstrated by the project that promotes participation, trust and ownership by the community, among other areas linking farmland treatment with animal forage development, degraded land treatment and area closure with the beekeeping and animal fattening, galley treatment with forage, fruit trees developments have promoted community livelihood and reduced watershed degradation. This is the lesson learned from this project. The synergetic effect of area closure at hillside, physical, biological, soil and water conservation measures in the closed areas in cultivated lands and the integrated gully treatment resulted in increased availability of surface and groundwater resources, particularly for the downstream parts of the watershed. Surface water harvesting can also lead to increased livestock production. Water harvesting reduced the walking distance of the cattle to the drinking point in the dry season, and this holds true for reducing burden on women in terms of really getting there to their homestead. On-site effects observed include increased soil and water decreased runoff, increased depths of topsoil. Furthermore, increased soil organic matter, soil microfauna, which lead to better nutrient cycling and aeration, and increased wildlife and biodiversity as well. The exit strategy and the subsequent exit plan prepared with active participation of the community and implementing partner at Warada level. Warada is a small administrative region in Ethiopia which is at lower level, enabled sustainability of result and the creation of long-term impact in the watershed and the resident communities. So as a recommendation, options of best practices and the technological package with proven performance identified under this project in the project design, management, and the natural resource conservation and the management of livelihood improvement, social infrastructural development should be scaled up within Eastern Nile Basin and even in the Nile Basin using the strategy of scaling up technical regional office intro. This is what I have. Thank you, moderator, and back.
Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Asefa. Again, another inspiring project, an IWRM project that was implemented by NPRO. Includes aspects of livelihood, natural resources management, and capacity building. I'm impressed by the way you've actually managed to summarize 6 years of work into 15 minutes. So please hang on there. I hope you're not leaving soon. I'm sure there are some questions after what we've seen from the before and the after. What changes have actually occurred? So thank you very much. I think now we go on to our last speaker, who is Mr. Henry Nyondo, who works for the African Institute for Development Policy here in Nairobi, Kenya. He's a strategic advocacy campaigns and communications specialist. He's developed and implemented communication strategies for different leading institutions. I can see HelpAge here, Africa Academy for Sciences. We have PACJA, or Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance. Uganda reached the Aged Association. Uganda reached the Aged Association, HealthNet Uganda, Climate Change Network of Kenya. So different organizations. So he terms himself as a lover of nature and philanthropy, and he has in the spirit of Ubuntu supported vulnerable grassroots communities in Kenya, Uganda, Malawi, Tanzania, Mozambique, and really raised their voices in public policy discourse. So he's currently pursuing a PhD in climate change communication, and today he's going to talk to us about the need for interlinkages of environment to population and health policies. So welcome, Mr. Nyondo.
He had mentioned that he had issues.
Okay, there we go.
So Henry, are you able to unmute?
Can he hear us really?
Am I audible?
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes. Yes, my name is Henry Nyondo. I work for the African Institute for Development Policy. And I'm taking us through this presentation. As you can see, mine is not a research. Mine is simply, should I say, scoping some thoughts that I want to float around. I'm based in Kenya. I'm a Kenyan, and being part of this Nile Basin, I think I have issues that I can float around for us to think and consider. Next slide. So about AFIDE briefly, it's about as an institution, it's an African-led think tank working to bridge the gaps between research, policy, and practice by synthesizing and translating research on population change, public health, and the environment. So among many of its projects include this USAID-funded building capacity for integrated family planning and reproductive health, and population, environment, and development action. This is a particular project that I'm working on as a communication knowledge management. Next. So basically, let me just float this idea that in the region, we are having an increasing population, as we all know, that globally population is increasing. Next. So that by 2100 years, our planet is expected to be home to 10.9 billion people. From, of course, right now we are beyond 7.7. This expansion of humanity will take place mostly in sub-Saharan Africa and Southern Asia. Rapid population growth has pervasive adverse effects on societies, economies, and the natural environment. In particular, with an additional 3 billion people producing greenhouse gas, the global warming problem will become even more intractable in the coming years. Over the next few decades, overall emissions from low-income countries are likely to rise because of a rise in emissions per capita from a rapid industrialization, as well as from increasing population. Emissions from high-income countries are expected to level off or decline as population in these regions stabilize or decline, and carbon emissions per capita will decline because of the aging population. In East Africa region, our emissions are growing exponentially. The process of energy cleanup is low with little emission reduction. Next. Now, remember that our emissions are increasing, population is increasing, but at the same time, you're having declining biodiversity. Next. Now, this is an image, the images I got from some paper where it's trying to demonstrate the rising population with the rising greenhouse gas emissions. And as well as if you look at the, to my right, we are having water sources declining. Next. So the nexus between greenhouse gas and biodiversity losses with the health nexus, we have seen that climate change impacts include increased frequency and intensity of extreme weather events with adverse effects on food, water security, human health, and livelihoods. Regions and people with considerable development constraints such as poverty, poor governance, limited access to essential services and resources, conflict, and climate-sensitive livelihoods have high vulnerabilities. So low and middle income countries that my project works in, climate change hotspots with a high human vulnerability. Analysis done by AFIDEP early on, about 2011, shows that countries with a high population growth tend to have the most adverse climate change. This is a WHO figure from WHO Afro region that was trying to demonstrate what happens in terms of the interlinkages between climate change and population, as well as this declaration by the declaration that call for financing, okay? Financing, but of course, the region is still lagging behind financing. So in terms of conclusion, we are saying that slowing population growth could provide of the emissions reductions suggested to be necessary by 2050 to avoid reaching the dangerous levels. Effects of changes in population composition can have a significant influence on emissions in particular regions, separate from the effect of changes in population size. The developed countries expect to have the reductions, emission reductions because of the aging population, but the reverse will be taking place in this part of the world. Therefore, there's need to encourage research and developing evidence that can inform policy that integrates the intersectionality among the population health, environment, and development. That particular bulletin, of course, speaks into our Nile Basin and our partners so that they can begin to think about funding and offering support to research towards integrated environment and these other issues that are related to in development. I think that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Henry. Indeed, you are a communications guru. You've made the presentation short and very clear. So thank you for that. And thank you for highlighting the need to also ensure that we commit resources to these integrated issues that we don't usually look at, issues such as population and health. So thank you for that. And of course, you have your recommendation there. So maybe as we conclude these presentations, I think we've gone through the different speakers. Mine is just to thank each and every one of them. And the next session now will be a Q&A session. And we'll open up the floor in case there are any questions that we want to ask to our 4 panelists. This is a time that you can ask them. I can see there's already been some activity on the chat and some of the questions are already being asked. So I don't know how we are going to do this. Maybe we can first check if there are any answers in the chat that have not been answered. So I'll start off with the first question, which is for Ms. Ato Asefa. Now the question goes, the Tana Beles project was a wonderful project of ENTRO. Has the government of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia been able to replicate and roll out similar projects? So maybe you can unmute yourself, Ato Asefa.
Yes. Thank you for the questions. This project was funded by the World Bank, originally funded by the World Bank. It is about $42 million projects. And overall, from this, about 11 million is allocated for this watershed management. This 42 million project was dollar was allocated for Tana and Beles integrated water resources management, which includes this watershed management basin information system, weather radar establishment, and different activities, including building resource management basin at basin level. So this project is, which was meant for this watershed management, is about 11 million USD. In terms of replication of the result obtained from this project, in Ethiopia, there are different watershed projects implemented by the Ministry of Agriculture, and those implementation is still ongoing. And the lesson learned from this Tana Beles watershed management is just replicated in other parts, is replicating in other parts of Ethiopia as well. So there are efforts by the government in terms of just making use of the output of this, the lesson learned from this project to the other parts of the basins in Ethiopia. What I have, first moderator.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I can see a hand up. Mohammed Yassin.
Yeah, thank you very much. You hear me, please?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. My question goes to Sadiki for the water observation from the space, which is interesting. She's mentioning that it is non-invasive and cost-effective, and it doesn't need to reach. It will allow for monitoring and remote politically sensitive areas. Of course, this is internet dependent, and it doesn't require sensors. It doesn't require sensors. It doesn't require monitoring hotspot to feed the satellite with information. This is the question. If it is so, so it will be viable to do this satellite-based monitoring and maybe overcome the issue of the temporal and spatial coverage. The Nile Basin countries have different status in terms of digital transformation and digital capacities and availability of electricity and internet to feed such a system, digital air system. So how you are tackling this in order to make your observation data reliable and shareable? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question. So with the water observation from space, so it's a service that utilizes the Landsat archive of data. So there's no live data that is being fed into the service, but rather it uses the archive that exists. So we do all the processing ourselves. The only thing that we put out to the people is the output. And like you said, unfortunately, we don't all have the same level of internet access, which is required to access our products at this point, unfortunately. But we do offer different ways to interact with this service. Like we have what we call the maps, the Digital Earth Africa Maps. It's just a Terria Maps platform where you can just go in and look at your area of interest with very little knowledge. You don't need to know how to process any remote sensing data or anything like that. You just need to know where you want to look at, zoom in, and load the data for that particular area. So that is, for now, the easiest way to load the water observation from space product. But we also have what we call the sandbox. It's an analysis cloud computing analysis environment that we provide to people for free. So for those who do have better internet coverage and do have the resources to do that and this expertise to do the analysis on the satellite imagery, you can still access the water observation from space product from there. But we also give you the entire, not the entire, but actually from 2017, the Sentinel-2 archive. We also have Sentinel-1 in addition to the Landsat from 1984 to present. So if you do have the expertise and the skills and the internet, you are able to go into that environment and do further analysis that you would require to gain more insights into the water bodies. But I do understand that unfortunately we don't have the same access to technology and internet as a result, so it is quite restrictive. But we're hoping that people who do have the decision power, so policymakers, governments, institutions, research institutions, can be able to get into the Digital Earth Africa platform and extract all this information and hopefully bring it down to the level for people who do not, unfortunately, have access to the relevant resources to access it. I really hope that answers your question.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so thank you very much. Any other questions from the floor? All right, so I don't see any other questions. Maybe to move forward, I'd just like to ask, I can see Mr. Henry Nyondo, you're a communications specialist, and you've worked for a long time in this field. How then can we use communications to be able to improve environmental management within the Nile Basin? What sort of tools can we develop for the different groups of people, be it the communities and the policymakers? What would be your view on this?
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Yeah, thank you. Yes, that's a wonderful question. Yes, yes, I worked in the field. I've done some. I worked for the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance before I joined AFIDEP, which I just joined recently. Yes, at Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, that it's an alliance of so many organizations trying to propagate and make salient the issues of Africa and climate change discourse. One thing that stands out is the need for us as, for example, Nile Basin, that of course I know I've interacted with one of your colleagues, former colleague, I think Mr. Fidel. I don't know if you can remember Fidel. Oh, okay, Fidel, I think he used to work for Nile Basin, the other one of CSOs. Yes, is to first and foremost know. I know you do a lot of research, you do a lot of studies, but then the studies must have an end. And of course, I think your major target audience is the governments in the region. Of course, the African Union, and of course, maybe the UN and many others that support you in many ways. So once you have your targeted audience properly segmented, then you have what is it that you want for, I mean, you're calling for in terms of messaging. Then, of course, you have an array of channels that you can use to reach each and every of these segmented audiences with the different kinds of message or packaged in a different way. For example, if you talk about the communities, you're talking about those community channels, such as barazas. Okay, baraza is community meetings. You have workshops, you have events that you can have. Of course, also other traditional means of reaching or speaking to the communities, like traditional music, entertainment. But then if you're looking at the high echelons, the policymakers, okay, so it depends which kind of policymakers are they experts. If they're expert, of course, you reach them through your journals. If they're non-expert policymakers, then you can reach them through policy briefs. You can reach them through media. You can reach to them through social media, just to pass a message, just trying to influence them on an issue that you want sorted out, review policies or enact a policy or repeal policies that you think are inhibiting your activities. So there are many ways you can reach out to them. And yeah, of course, but the most important thing is knowing who you want to influence and then deciding how to go about influencing them with the proper message, which I know as experts, you have lots of things that you've come up with, lots of research that you're doing, but you just need to look for ways on how to disseminate what you have to the various audiences that speak or your program speaks to. I hope in a very layman or simple language that answers your question. Thank you.
All right, so thank you very much. You write messages, simple, different audiences, to make sure that we reach them effectively. Now, before we continue to the next panelist, there's a question here to Josiane, saying that you indicated that all 9 Basin Initiative member countries have not ratified the Water Convention. So what really is the challenge? How can the countries be supported?
Thank you so much, moderator. So when it comes to the challenges of ratifying, goes on a country basis. So I cannot say like this is the challenge, the main challenge for all the countries. But when it comes to ratifying, there is a lot of studies and research that has to be undertaken. There is understanding what are the benefits of ratifying, because there are so many MAs that are existing, and countries try to explore the opportunities they will be enhancing they will be leaping out of ratifying such convention. So the challenges can range from different aspects. I cannot speak on all countries here, which is why this research will go through really to understand what pushes a country to choose a certain MAs over another. But as I mentioned, there are talks that some of the countries are willing to join the Water Convention. And also we have to understand that the Water Convention recently started extending invitation to other countries. Initially, it was for the European countries. So how countries can be supported, this is like where I come back on bringing all MAs together to understand and like explore at currently in water biodiversity related MAs, what are the benefit, like learning from other existing MAs that are in the country, learning from the National Focal Point, and looking at the implementation, and also like sourcing out for example, sourcing out through consultant to understand really the benefit and the values of joining a convention and the implication it's going to have on the negotiations, on the negotiation basis. Thank you.
Okay, maybe just to ask you a follow-up question. I look at some of these mayors and I look at our environment. Signing them or ratifying them does not necessarily mean that maybe, for example, the wetland status will improve or something like that. In fact, the status actually sometimes worsens, they become more degraded. I'm just wondering, from your opinion, what can we do to make sure that these mayors actually contribute to environmental management? Maybe more specifically in the Nile Basin, what have you found as you do your studies?
Thank you for the good question. Like ratifying and putting a signature on a convention does not necessarily translate into implementation. And that's why when countries are ratifying and they're starting implementation, they are urged to go on the ground, because all the efforts and the commitment has to come on the ground level. The countries must be committed to ratify and to remove the challenges and the environmental issues. So in my opinion, what I would say is like when a country is ascending to a certain convention and goes on the ground and lays awareness within the countries across sectors on how to manage, for example, in the case of wetlands, because they cannot be managed for example, when a country send on MAs and ratify, and let's say the MA is going to be hosted by the Ministry of Environment. The Ministry of Environment itself cannot work toward the implementation of all the measures to protect wetlands. So they have to work across sectors and leverage the resources. These MAs have resources. They have reporting resources, they have tools, they have potential for financing abilities. And also there is a connection of like looking at what do you need, because at the end all these conventions have a meeting of conference of the parties, and looking as a country, after we have signed, we have identified these issues. When it comes to protection of wetlands or protection of biodiversity, as much as a contribution to the country, it goes beyond the country. It's a worldwide effort. So go back to those MAs convention where you have ratified and explicitly negotiate what can be done to support your countries, but also make sure that there is effort on the country to implement those actions, and leverage stakeholders within the country, leverage also financing within the country, not necessarily going to requesting for the financing, and leverage the available tools. Thank you.
So thank you very much. So in short, it's not about the mayor itself. It's also about how committed we are as the countries and the different stakeholders. So it takes all of us to be able to make these mayors work. So that's what I hear from you.
Yes.
Now, yeah. So sorry, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say what I can add is that having these MAs create the agenda and the talk worldwide. It brings the issue on the platform of the worldwide, and that's how, when we come to like private sector being aware of the existence of the issue. Thank you.
All right, so thank you very much. So now maybe just moving on to Ms. Sadiki. Now you presented some very beautiful tools. I mean, as you present them, it looks like something very practical. But what I'd like to know is why already we've talked about resources, we've talked about some countries not having access maybe to internet or the basic infrastructure. But then what else do we need to do to make this accessible to everybody? And as an organization, what are you doing to make this accessible to ensure that environmental management then moves to the next level?
Oh, thank you so much for that question. Actually, capacity building or capacity development is a very integral part of what we do here at Digital Africa. So we have a big commitment to extending just beyond us providing data and tools, and we do recognize the true power of that the true power lies in the hands of individuals and organizations at the local level. So what we tend to do is we tend to empower and train local communities. So we actually have a capacity and development team. We have our lead based in Kenya and our user engagement manager based in Rwanda. And we also have Edward in Ghana who go out in Africa and actually support and train communities, governments and organizations so they can become proactive stewards for their own environment. So we do this through just basic education of Earth observation and skill development, especially around the platform that we offer. And we try and tailor it to the needs of the people that we are talking to. So if we're talking to the research institutions, it's probably going to be within a more coding environment in the sandbox. And then if we are talking to people who don't have the expertise, we'll probably just push more of the maps where they can do visualizations, zoom in, zoom out, pan around, and play animations of an area of interest. But we do believe strongly in imparting these skills by talking to local stakeholders so they themselves can participate actively in environmental initiatives and monitoring changes within their own environments and ecosystems. So although we are, I would say, on the smaller side in terms of an organization, we do try our very best to go out to different parts of Africa to impart the skills and the knowledge that we have as an organization. I hope that answers your question.
I'm just wondering, are there also tools that can be used? Some of the citizen science is becoming something very common. I'm just wondering, are there also tools that can be used by the communities?
Not at the moment, but we are open to collaborations and working on projects. So if you see a need for a tool of that kind, you reach out to us and we sit together and we develop something that will be impactful on the continent. So although we don't have it, doesn't mean that we can't work on it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Now, going back to, I'm not seeing any other questions. I'm just seeing a lot about sharing the website. Maybe that is something that can be done. The website for Digital Earth Africa. The website for Digital Earth Africa. So maybe that's something that you can do, Sadiki. Maybe just going back to Henry Nyondo. And now you talked about population, you talked about us looking at it in terms of being one of the ways that we can reduce issues to do with greenhouse gas emissions. Now, I'm just wondering, do you have any case studies, any examples of where this has worked practically?
Thank you. Yes. Let me say right now the project is it's a 5-year project that's funded by USAID and is running in 4 pilot countries. We are running it in Kenya for Eastern Africa, Malawi for Central and Southern Africa, Cote d'Ivoire for Western Africa, and Philippines for the Asian countries, Southeast Asia. So right now, is of course we are still at the phase of scoping and doing a lot of, should I say, reviewing the situations at the ground. We can't say, but what we are doing right now is calling upon, based on the researches that have been done earlier on, a lot of stuff on that. If you can get this from the People Planet Connect, a knowledge access website for the USAID, that provides a lot of research and data on the interlinkages between population health and environment. So looking at what is already available, we are trying to engaging policymakers to see where they can create this synergy and begin to integrate their policies that links or that interlinks these 3 areas. Of course, we know that no SDG can be achieved by itself unless you have this interconnected kind of integration. So that's what I can say for the time being. That what we are doing right now is just engaging policymakers based on the research that has been done in various parts of the world.
Okay, so thank you very much. Now, Mary, I'm going to put you, Mary Namkose, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm aware you're a rapporteur, but I just want to hear from you. Working for a multilateral organization, working on transboundary wetlands. Maybe what are some of the challenges you see in terms of environmental management? And what are some of the opportunities that you see moving forward that we also need to pick up on? Thanks.
Thank you very much, moderator, and for putting me on the spot as well. Well, I would like to start from the positive side. What are the opportunities of improving environmental management in the Nile Basin or in the transboundary context? From my personal point of view, I feel that there is power in partnerships, and we can leverage on partnerships to try to solve some of these key environmental challenges that we are experiencing. I think leaving everything in the hands of governments, leaving everything maybe in the hands of the private sector, the non-state actors, I think no one can complete everything. So we need to really build, co-initiate and build these partnerships. It's an opportunity working in partnerships, much as sometimes they take a lot of time. But since environmental issues are somehow connected, I think we need to leverage on the power of partnerships in addressing some of the challenges that we are facing. And I think relatedly to this webinar in the morning, we were looking at the issue of water quality, the issue, for example, of plastic pollution, which is very eminent in most of our countries where we are located. And if you look at the plastic pollution chain, or if you look at the issue of plastic pollution, just the policies, regulations, guidelines put by the different countries can't solve this issue. We need to make partnerships. We need to bring everyone on board. We need to bring government on board, the private sector, the consumers themselves. We need to bring them on board to work together collaboratively in order to address such an issue. So I think partnerships, it's an opportunity. And relatedly to what Josiana mentioned, on the ratification process, partnerships work in the same sense. The stakeholders need to know what is it in for them before they commit, because we need resources, we need to build capacity, we need to commit time to doing this. So I think in a nutshell, partnerships is quite an opportunity that we should leverage on, but also in a transboundary context, I think we need to look to share knowledge and experiences. I feel knowledge is an opportunity, and every environmental issue that we are facing in the Nile Basin, there is at least one country or the other which has gone a bit ahead of the other in solving some of these issues. Yeah, most of you on this call, you might well know that in Rwanda, you will not be entertained with your plastic bag at the airport on the go. So we need maybe to ask ourselves, what is country A? Why is it that it works in country A, but it doesn't work in country B? Why is it that country A has very good policies to address environmental challenges, but country X probably, is lagging behind? We are all at different levels in terms of institutional capacity, in terms of policy development. When we come, for example, to the issue of environmental degradation, most of the NBI member countries are at different levels when it comes to policy, institutional capacity, knowledge, for example, and data available. So I think we need to leverage on the expertise within the region, share knowledge and experiences, and also showcase some of these good initiatives that are happening. I believe so many people are doing good work out there, but we are simply not communicating, or we are communicating in kind of a way, or we are preaching to ourselves. That could also be the other thing. And I'm particularly interested in Henry's PhD on climate change, for example, in the PhD topic, a PhD in climate change communication. For me, I think communication is a very powerful tool, again, which we can use to communicate some of these challenges, to communicate what we are doing in addressing some of these environmental issues. We have the power of social media. I think right now, if you wrote to see, for example, a Minister for Environment, to inform him or her about a certain issue, if you wrote that minister a letter, it would take weeks for this minister to get this letter. But if you tweeted about something, just even putting that, maybe fish has died in Lake Victoria, or no more fish in Lake, just a mere tweet of just a few words, it will attract the attention of these policymakers, of all the stakeholders involved. So I think another opportunity we have is the power of social media, especially in trying to address some of these challenges. I think I can speak for a day. I would like to.
Okay, I just needed to hear from you also, maybe just to go back to Ramza. I think that's who we work very well with. This is, Miss Abonio. Now, you heard Mary talking about partnerships, for example. I'm just wondering, when it comes to Ramza, how do you see these partnerships working? Do you think it's a way to reach where we really want to reach in terms of our wetlands, for example? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Mronga. Indeed, that's a great point that Mary mentioned about partnership. And like I said before as well, like when it comes to implementation on the ground, it's very important that all stakeholders are involved in when it's designing the project, addressing wetland issues, that all stakeholders across the different sector are in together. And on when it comes to Ramza Convention, they have developed guidelines and guidance when it comes to wetlands management, especially those that are cross-border, like transboundary wetlands management. And on partnership, they also provide tools and the guidance on how to leverage the financial, capacities, or like financial assistance, and also how to engage with private sector. Like Mary mentioned, when it comes to developing the projects that are addressing wetlands issues, it is important to go beyond the government. And even when a project is going to be financed, it's important to leverage the private sector so that when the project is concluded, there will be sustainability on the ground. And like you mentioned on the communication, it's important to really tailor the right communication to the right people and bring them in. And on this partnership, you can see it when it comes to developing, for example, the national strategy on wetlands policy. And there are tools on like for Ramza Convention provided tools that support countries on how to develop this wetland policy. And when it comes to wetland policy, you need to have all the actors committed and understanding how this policy is going to be implemented. Hence, that partnership we're talking about. It comes from formulating policies to coming on implementation on the ground. Thank you.
Yes, so thank you very much. Thank you. Indeed, these partnerships are very key. Now, Henry, even as we talk about partnerships, sometimes I feel that we are talking to each other. We are not going out there and trying to convert the unconverted in terms of environmental management. I don't know what you feel about this. Should we be talking to other people?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, Julie, yes. I think let me just follow up on what Mary said or mentioned, is that even you mentioned earlier, they need to leverage partnerships. They need to look into the horizon and see who else is doing what similar to what you're doing. And therefore, you kind of look for ways of partnering with them so that you can still achieve what you intend to achieve using the network way, alliance way, coalition way, so that somebody who is doing something on the ground can still implement what you intend to do on the ground. And I can give examples of the way the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance does its work. It has a small secretariat in Nairobi, but it has national chapters around the country. Who are these national chapters? They are not affiliated to PACGIA at all, but they are separate organizations implementing their own programs. But then when it comes to matters on climate justice advocacy, then they do implement what PACGIA does. Similarly, the Nile Basin can go out of its way and trying to see. And I'm sure you're doing that. Who else is doing what you're doing, and who else can help us achieve what we want to achieve, particularly in terms of policy engagements. You leverage on people who are strong in that area. If it comes to research, you leverage people who are strong in research. If it comes to people to issues of advocacy, issues of communication, you leverage. You do not have to necessarily be paying, but it's a question of you working, finding a way of working with them in a systematic and coordinated manner, as long as somebody at your secretariat is coordinating this. And of course, there's the need for sharing information, the need for kind of continuous engagement. I mean, that partnership, what should I say, partnership, relationship management and building that needs to be applied appropriately. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Now, as we near the end of this, I just want to hear just your last thoughts from each of the presenters that we had. I think we already lost Mr. Asefa. So maybe just to hear from all of us, maybe to start with our keynote speaker. Maybe your last thought before we finish this. So Dr. Jean Namokize, maybe your last thoughts, then we can begin to conclude this webinar.
Thank you, moderator. My last thought on this is just all of us will have to work together and to collaborate in the management of wetland and the water resource in general. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, moving over to Sadiki, maybe just your last thoughts.
Thank you. I think from what we've discussed today, it's very evident that there are substantial challenges, but there are also a lot of opportunities available as well. So like everyone said, through collaborative efforts, I think if we join that with data-driven decision-making and we share our commitment to sustainability, we can overcome these challenges and better monitor and assess the health and resilience of the environment or the water resources in the Nile Basin Initiative. And I think Digital Earth Africa is properly placed in this space to support endeavors like this by providing a platform with data as well as innovation and collaboration to assist in creating a more sustainable and prosperous future for the Nile Basin and its communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then Henry, your last thoughts?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, I think it has been a very, very wonderful meeting, and I think I've shared thoughts that I hope will be carried forward. It is very important that we do think in a system thinking in a way that we can integrate these issues of population, health, and environment. As we know that our Nile Basin is one of the most fertile areas in terms of the nature, and fertile in terms of human, you know, our family size, I think cannot be compared to anywhere else. So we need to think in terms of all those three areas so that we can have a future that is assured. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. Maybe as I go to the last person, who is Josiane, maybe now I'd like to engage the audience. I think I have 30 participants here, and we've been very quiet all through. I just want you to put in the chat there. I'm asking the question, how do we improve environmental management in the Nile Basin? Just one word from each and every one of you. As we listen to Josiane, just put that word in the chat, and then we'll see what we have at the end of it. So, Josiane, over to you.
Thanks, Mrs. Moronga. My last point is that wetlands management or natural resources management within the Nile Basin or within a country itself, it goes beyond the number of treaties a country have signed. it has to be a commitment at a national level. And this commitment can be translated on how they're incorporated or integrated into the national plans and how the implementation is monitored and reported. So for the Nile Basin of these 11 countries, the commitment has to come from the countries, but also reflect on the basin, on the initiative with the strategies that are driven by these countries and are tailored for these countries specifically in a different way. And the other one I can add, it's always very important and crucial when working on a project, when drafting these strategies or project, we understand their sustainability and is put on front and understood how the financing sustainability will continue. So we don't have projects that last 5 years and then they are forgotten again and you have to start again. Thank you.
All right, so thank you very much. We have a very quiet audience, but I think for me, my takeaways are effective partnerships. I think not one person can do this. I think we all need to put our heads together to be able to get this done in terms of the Nile Basin. We understand some of the issues are transboundary, so our approaches have to ensure that we consider that. Another thing I'm getting out of this is that data is very key. So this is where Digital Earth then becomes an important organization such as this Digital Earth become very, very important. So what I also get from communications is the way we then package this data for different people so that they're able to take it up and use it well. What I also get is systems thinking, integrated water resource management. So being able to consider all the different issues. And then I also get the issue of sustainability. One of the points that was just said, we really need to consider that even as we put in place our environmental management projects within the Nile Basin. I hear commitment. I also hear the fact that, let me read some of the comments that I'm seeing here. Effective partnerships are there. I hear strategize and act as one planet, one people. I see concerted efforts with commitment by government on stakeholder engagement. Everyone should be involved, engaged, and capacity is built. I agree with that. A good point was brought in by Mr. Asefa, where he talked even of the communities. Sometimes we forget to engage the communities in these issues. And then avoiding environmental pollutions. Our wetlands are not dumping sites. I think that is knowledge that really needs to be communicated even to the people that we work with. And then policies, we need to have those policies in place. Yeah, indeed, they do exist, but implementation is where we drag our feet. So maybe that's one thing we also need to look at, make sure all these policies are actually implemented. Public awareness about the environmental issues, partnerships again, leverage on technology. And then, of course, the other thing that I'm hearing is that there are environmental issues that are also coming up that we've not considered for a very long time. So these new environmental issues, pollution, plastic pollution, those are also things that we also need to be considering. So those are just some of the things that came out of this discussion. If we need to reach the next level in terms of the Nile Basin in terms of the Nile Basin, which is very important for us, very key, the picture that was presented to us. So yeah, I think with that, I can hand over now to Mary. On my part, I think we've gone through what we needed to go through. So I'll hand over to you, Mary, to conclude the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our moderator, Madam Julie Ulonga. We really appreciate your time and also our presenters logging in from different parts of the world. and also our audience. I know it's a tough afternoon with maybe a lot of energy after heavy lunches, but thank you for staying tuned to this webinar. I think we elaborated wonderful points here when it comes to environmental management in the Nile Basin. And feel free to leave your contacts, those who would like to stay in touch, especially from what our presenters have mentioned. Sadiq, I think it would be good to share the link to Digital Earth Africa and the sandbox, which is mentioned. She has already shared. I think those are powerful tools that we need to reflect on. And I would like to also remind you that we have a webinar tomorrow starting at 9. So in case you have not registered, please remember to register. It's also on aquatic ecosystems health. Otherwise, on behalf of the Secretariat, I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has joined this session. And I would like to hand over to Dr. Jean to officially close the session.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, moderator, and thank you all participants. I think you have nothing else to add because most of the points have been discussed. And I'm closing by inviting you to the tomorrow session, which will start at 9. Thank you and have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.